Week 10 NHL teams stat leaders. Now, I've done one of these for players, and I've released it around this time of the week, Saturday, Sunday. This is a new one I'll be doing, which won't show up in this time regularly. It'll probably show up between anytime between Tuesday and Friday, I want to say, and I'll continue to do the players one on Saturday or Sunday. However, this being the Christmas time is coming up and everything, I'm going to flip-flop it just for now. So I'll have the players coming out in a few days. But yeah, this is new. So, but before we get to the board here, I just wanted to, yeah, there you go. There's my jersey shirt. That's for a subscriber of mine who says I never wear any Devils stuff. There you are. Unfortunately, when you see them on the board, it won't be in a good place. But enough of me blabbing, let's get to it. Here is the board. What do we have here? We have the special teams. So we have the top five and the worst five in all of these categories that I have here. And those are the power play, the penalty kill, the face-offs, the shots against per game, the wins, overtime losses, and the points. Now I just wanted to make a side note here that this is pre-Sunday's games. So that's pre-Sunday, December 16th, I want to say. Just confirm that on my phone. Yes. So this is pre-Sunday, December 16th games. So let's start with the power play, the top five power play in the league. Number 1 through 5 here. Any surprises? I don't think so, really. Well, okay, yeah, the Florida Panthers, right? They're one of the worst teams in the league right now, but they're in the top 5 in the power play. How does that happen? Well, how does that happen? That happens because of Barkov, Huberdeau. That happens because of Ekblad, because of Yandel. All these, their top two lines and their first three or so defensemen are really skilled players. So it's quite perplexing as to why they're doing so awfully this season. One could say because of their goaltending. Luongo's been injured for a lot of it, and he's been even slightly off at times. James Reimer, the backup, is just having a really awful season, and so has anyone else they've thrown in to back him up when Luongo's been down. But in any case, I'm digressing here. We're talking about the power play. So it's pretty lethal. When they played the Leafs last night, they looked good. And they just keep throwing Barkov and Huberdeau out there, and Hoffman as well. So they have players who can get it done. Next, let's move on to the top 5 worst power play in the league, ranked 27 through 31. What surprises do we have here? Okay, at number 30, Montreal. I mean, it's surprising Montreal's doing this well to begin with. I don't think, not many people, except for maybe Mark Bergevin, thought they'd be doing as good as they did. Maybe not even him. But here they are, and they're, I want to say, in the middle of the league now in points-wise. They may even grab onto that last wild card spot there. We'll see if they can keep up the good play. And besides that little blip, that 7-1 loss against Minnesota. So why are they on one of the worst power plays in the league? I would say because Weber's been injured for so long. I mean, he just came back about a handful or so games ago. So I would think that with his kind of booming shot and his experience, you should see Montreal slowly climb out of that, I would think. The other team who I think is quite surprising to be there is obviously Nashville at the number 27th spot there. Now, Nashville doesn't really have any pure sniper, right? They don't have a Phil Kessel or a Patrick Laine or Austin Matthews or Nikita Kucherov, Alexander Ovechkin, how can I forget him, etc., etc. But they do have Forsberg, and they do have some talented players. Forsberg's on the first line as well as Arvidsson, and both those players who also do the power play, I believe, are injured. And they'll be injured till late January, and they've been injured for the past, I want to say, almost 2 months. And then of course they also missed PK Subban, who was on the power play, and he should be back in about a week or so. So perhaps you'll see them slowly climb out of that 27th spot. So that should improve. Moving on to the next part, the penalty kill, the top 5 best penalty kill in the league. Looking at this 1 through 5, if you've been, keeping up with the NHL so far this season, none of that, even Arizona, it shouldn't be a surprise to you because Arizona's number 1 in the league in shorthanded goals, which is probably a piece that I missed putting on this board, the leaders in shorties. Then the rest of those teams have really good defense. Minnesota, Dumba and Suter. I want to say Spurgeon as well. Tampa Bay. They're loaded. Enough said there. St. Louis may be slightly surprising for them to be the best, penalty kill in the league, but up until maybe lately with Peter Angelo, he's a talented player. So is Peryenko, who's got a super long reach, long stick. Then there's some other experienced defensemen on that team. So although they're towards the bottom point wise, it shouldn't really be surprising to see them there. Next up, the 5 worst penalty killers in the league. Washington, that team sticks out. Maybe the reasons behind that might be the loss of of a key face-off man in Jay Beagle. He was, I want to say, top 3-4 last year in face-off percentage. When he left to sign with Vancouver, so that could be part of the reason. I don't know if Kuznetsov was on the penalty kill. It's very possible, so that could be another reason. But the rest of those teams I don't think should be much of a surprise. Next category, the top 5 best face-offs, teams at face-offs in the league. Right off the bat, you're looking what? Philadelphia? What? But then again, between Giroux and Couturier, there's Nolan Patrick. Maybe that's not. Last year, those players, especially I want to say Couturier and Giroux, were some of the best face-off guys in the league. So, am I surprised they're that high? Yes. But not that they're necessarily on that list. Who else might be a surprise there? St. Louis, not really, because of O'Reilly, obviously. And Bozak is a pretty good face-off man himself. So there's that. Nashville, Calgary, okay. Detroit, that's a bit surprising. I honestly am trying to Larkin must be good at face-offs, or at least must have improved, along with 1 or 2 other centers on that team. That's something I have to do a little homework on. The next category, the 5 worst face-off teams in the league. What can you say about that? See, what sticks out to me here is Washington again. But that kind of correlates, doesn't it? Because they're also in the top 5 worst penalty kill in the league. So when you're not getting the puck in your own zone, when you're killing a penalty, chances are it might, or there's a high propensity that it could end up in your net. The other teams there, maybe Buffalo and Avalanche, because they're around the top 5 point wise in the league, that they're that bad in the face-offs position. But it shows that you don't need to have an amazing face-off necessarily to be near the top in the league. Moving on, shots against per game, top 5. Carolina. Carolina again. If you've been keeping up with the NHL so far this season, Carolina has the best shot suppression and has, I think, are among the most in shots for in the league as well. So being that's another category I missed, having the most shots in the league. I probably should have put that on the board as well next time. In any case, I digress. So yeah, so Carolina is not a surprise there. The Golden Knights, their whole defense probably consists of really they don't really have a horse per se, a number one, arguably, but they have you could say they have a lot of number twos and number threes on that team spread out. So Calgary's got a really good defense. I mean, those are all the really good defensive teams right there. I mean, San Jose has sputtered a bit so far, and Minnesota has been going through a bit of a rough patch lately. But otherwise, on paper, they all have a pretty good defense, including Carolina. So let's move on to the top 5 worst shots against per game in the league, 27 through 31. Surprises. Not, again, if you've been watching, not really. Maybe Anaheim, because they're doing so well right now, mostly for the past 3 weeks. I want to say they've really turned it on. First 3 weeks, they were really amazing. And then in the last 3 weeks, they've really picked it up as well, and they've climbed back into a playoff spot. I believe they're second in the Pacific right now. So maybe that's slightly surprising that they're still on that list, and they've been on that list for quite some time. I want to say the whole season. Gibson has seen a lot of rubber in Anaheim. Next up, we have the Leafs used to be on that list. Leafs, I believe, were the worst in the league for shots against last season. Anderson, I want to say Glenn Anderson. Frederik Anderson had seen the most rubber last season. But moving on. Wins. Most wins. Top 5 most wins in the league. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who's on this list. Nashville kind of climbed back on this list after having a bad 2-3 weeks. But they've been ravaged by injuries, as I've mentioned already. Calgary has just slowly been getting better. They've been having issues with their goaltending. Smith has been pretty poor for most of the season. He's had a bit of a bounce back lately. And Riddick has been their backup from last year, has basically become their starter this year, and he's looked good. I want to say a couple weeks ago he had a bit of a tough time, but not really. Maybe he had he lost some 1-0 games, some overtime losses, but he's been pretty much steady all year. So now that Calgary's getting some good goaltending, and don't forget, Hanifin has done really well on the defense there. I think he's sort of been the better of the two between him and Hamilton, who went the other way to Carolina, and of course Lindholm has done wonders on that first line. He's fit in perfectly with Monahan and Gaudreau. So Calgary, look for Calgary to stay there. I'll be interesting to see if they can keep that up, and they should be, as long as their goaltending doesn't crater for any reason. Buffalo is slowly sliding off that list. They had that 10-game win streak, and now it's like turned into like a 5-6 game losing streak. Mind you, there's some overtime losses in there. So we'll see if Buffalo can stop the bleeding and they can stay on that. I don't think they'll slide too far off of there. Maybe worst 10th, overall. I would say that's my guess. In any case, let's move on to the next category, which is the least amount of wins this season. Your top 5 for that, ranked number 27 to 31 in the league. Am I shocked to see any of those teams? I don't think so. I mean, at the beginning of the year when I did my English, when I did my segment on predicting the regular season standings, I had teams like I had Florida finishing much higher. I had Florida squeezing into a playoff spot, and that doesn't look like it's happening now. It still could, but it would have to be a pretty drastic turnaround. I didn't have necessarily. I thought Phoenix, after the way Ranta played late last season, wouldn't be doing this poorly. But of course, he's been injured for most of the season so far, right? And Kemper has had some pretty high highs and some pretty low lows. They have a new goalie, Aiden Hill, who stepped in. You might have heard me mention him before. He's been doing pretty well. So Arizona might be able to climb off of that list. Carolina might also be able to climb off that list. They're just not scoring enough. Ottawa, they might bob in and out of that, but I wouldn't, but not far. And the rest, St. Louis and Philly at the beginning of the season, that was a shock. Now, it's no surprise to anyone. Look for major changes to be happening. Maybe not before Christmas, but I would say soon afterwards. At least soon after the All-Star game, I would think there are going to be some major trades happening in the league. Moving on to the next category, overtime losses. Now, this category isn't really indicative of how bad a team is doing this year, because if you look at the number 2 spot, right, Colorado Avalanche, they're top 5 in points this season, and they're on that list. So, I know the rest of those teams aren't much of a surprise. Pittsburgh's trying to claw their way out of the dungeon, and they've been looking good lately. It's not out of the question they might grab a wild card spot still. There's still time. The rest of those teams there, who's surprising? 5 overtime losses. Maybe Buffalo to a certain extent, San Jose and Anaheim even. And maybe if you look at number 4, Boston perhaps, but Boston has been going through a lot of injuries. And then number 5, I'm not even sure why I put in number 5. 3 overtime losses, could be anyone. Next up we have the most points in the league, the top 5 most points. If you look at that, Nashville kind of almost sank out of that top 5 there, but they're back in there. They've been playing a little bit better of late, and hopefully they'll be getting back some injured players soon, especially PK Subban. So they've taken they got Kyle Turris back lately, their second line center. So that's given them a bit of a boost. And Pickering has been playing lights out for most of the season so far. That helps. But imagine once they get Subban and those other 2 players back, they might give Tampa a run for their money. Just saying, we'll see. Although Tampa has a 6-point lead. That's amazing. Remember, this is pre-Sunday, December 16th games. Otherwise, Buffalo seems to be, after that 10-game win streak, they were at number 1 at one point, I believe, in points in the league. Were they? Maybe not for long. Anyways, they're slowly sliding off because they have had, I want to say 5 in their past 7 games or so. Most of those have been losses, if not all of them. Although there's been a lot of overtime losses too. So I still think that they're a good team this year. Dahlin has been playing a lot better recently, offensively. In any case, so I think they'll stick around at least in the top 10. I don't think they'll sink any lower than 10. And in a playoffs position is definitely in the picture, I think, for them. Although at the beginning of the year, I did not think they would make it. I thought they would. I thought they were within 5 spots of a playoff spot. So in any case, next up we have the worst teams for points. The top 5 worst team points list here, 27 through 31. Yeah, it is what it is. We look at the bottom, Chicago and LA. They could swap positions easily. Those teams have started to trade players already, more than any other team for the most part, maybe outside of Pittsburgh, and maybe Arizona. But it's no surprise that they're there. When is the fire sale going to start, and who's going to involve? That's going to be the big question. I think the only safe player in Chicago might be Patrick Kane, really. I think, and maybe Alex to bring Cat. I think everyone else is game on that team. if they can move him with their contracts and so on and so forth, if they can work that out. Los Angeles, I would say maybe Doughty's safe, and Kopitar. I think that's obvious. Oh, the cat's clawing at the door. No, stop doing that. And then the rest of the teams there. Yeah, if you've been watching, Philly and St. Louis, probably the biggest disappointments, which we didn't see them, being this bad, especially St. Louis. So they may wait a little bit longer in the year, but I would think soon after the All-Star break, at the least, you'll be hearing trade chatter hitting through the roof. I mean, we've already heard a lot about Pietrangelo, although he's now injured. He's had surgery on his hand, so maybe that'll quiet things down for the time being. You keep on hearing Peryanko's name thrown out there because he's a right-handed D, and he's like 6'5". He's a monster, long reach. He works the power play, the penalty kill. He can carry the puck, but I want to say he's 25 or under. So I think that's one of the key players St. Louis wants to keep. You hear Tarasenko. He could be a guy that might be moved, but in any case, I don't want to speculate anymore. That's it. That's all. This video is already too long. Thank you so very much for watching. I'll be going on Christmas vacation. I want to say my last video might be either Wednesday or Thursday. I'm going to say that's the 19th or 20th or something. And then I'll be heading to the in-laws, which is like a 4-hour or so drive away. So I'll be, and my next video won't be till about I want to say sometime between the 28th and 31st of December. So I apologize for taking a bit of a break. Christmas. I apologize for taking a Christmas break. I just can't bring all my equipment with me, and there's a lot of people there, and yeah. Hit like if you like this video. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you know any hockey geeks, please don't feel shy about sharing. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.